applicant started without them going and quoting themselves in online leasing. Like, do you know how to connect their quote to them starting an application?
You give their quote ID number and then they put the quote ID number in the bottom left.
Yeah, well, and in this one it looks a little bit different, but in most of your sites it says continue to online leasing, and you can put in your quote. I always recommend that with those prospects that you're already working with, quote them in one site, because obviously the only way that you can get good quotes is in one site, ones that are correct. Because, well, you guys have the option to do it in I Love Leasing. They're not correct because they don't include the flat rate utility. If you have concessions or short term, it doesn't include any of that stuff.
So it'd be better just to do with
One site, yeah. Okay. So you still manage your lease in I Love Leasing the way that you would, but if you want them to start an application, create a quote for them, because that way when they actually go in and start their application, they plug in their quote number, it connects them automatically to their gas card, and then they can proceed. If anybody needs help with doing those steps, let me know and we'll take that offline out of here, because I'm going to start with a fresh applicant in here. I'm going to pretend that I am a sight unseen, I'm picking the apartment and applying. But yeah, if you need help with connecting, especially now that everybody's getting the iPads, it's such a great way to get them started.
Who has iPads?
We all know.
Yeah, everybody should. So your best bet is to take that quote number, plug it in for them, and get them started. So then they can just sit there in your office and finish their application. But I'm going to pretend that I am a brand new prospect and my information is not in the system. So I'm going to go in and select my apartment. And, oh, we never took away the specials. I never deleted it last time. I knew I forgot something.
You gotta make us know why.
Well, let's just pretend it's not there. Pretend that there's no special there, guys. We're going to have a conversation about concessions and specials a little bit later, but this is from the last training that I failed to take away. So let's just say we're going with a, oh gosh, unfreeze. We're going to say, okay, on my computer, there we go. We're going to go with this 6 month freeze. That does not have a concession on it. Okay, so they're going to plug in their information.
What's the name? B. So I doubt a lot of, just to interject, when it comes to your leases, just to remind you, a lease is a legally binding contract and is not legally binding unless you're using the names that match their ID. So Christina just entered the name of B. It's probably somebody who has a nickname since birth, and that's what she goes by, but on her license it probably says Beatrice. So it's up to you, because you are the ones now generating the leases, you know, to make sure that the names on the lease match their ID. And even though if they want to be called B, keep that in your head, put it in notes, it's B, it's B, it's B, on the lease.
Once we generate the lease, we can go in and edit the name on, right?
I wouldn't, because you're going to do renewals.
Right.
And renewals are addendums to the contract, essentially.
Exactly, so it should match the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, and then once you change it, when we go to start filing in court on people,
Yeah.
if you're not the one that's filing in court and somebody else is, they're pulling
They're
that
gonna use the
information
nickname.
directly
And if
from
you want to
there.
put their nickname and middle name, the middle name is overwritten anyway.
Okay.
For the lease, it'll
Mhm.
say Beatrice B.
Okay.
Perfect. Does
And
that work?
Yeah.
And the best way to start it is from the beginning, when you're working with them as a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
They'll usually give you the name that they go by, but I would also ask them, can I get your full name that's maybe on your license or on your ID? That way it starts from the beginning, because right from the beginning, all of this filters then into the lease. So it eliminates things that you have to edit later on, which is what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
As limited that you have to do as possible by starting it correct from the beginning.
Will we need to have their middle name?
No, you don't, it isn't required.
Okay.
because like Carolyn said, the middle name, I don't believe actually goes over to the lease.
The only time, the only
Have to have
the
the
only time the
initial.
middle name is
The middle
used for
initial.
is to confirm their identity when running their credit and background check.
Yeah, because I had a prospect when I worked at North Hills that she required to have her middle name because it was an issue, but later on down the line, but
Which is fine.
I didn't.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Well, and if we need to, we could always put the middle name in with the first name,
Mhm.
so that it automatically shows up.
Okay.
But like Johnny said, it's usually just the initial that, people will put in, so, if they need the full thing, yeah, let's just put it in with the first name, so that way it plugs in properly.
Okay.
Okay, so at most of the communities, it's automatically set up with your flat rate utility fee and your property admin fee. Casey, do we have the valet trash set up at yours as well?
Correct.
I believe we do,
Yep.
okay. We have it at yours as
Yeah,
well,
you already
too.
set it up.
Who
Okay.
has the property admin fee? I know you do.
Yep. We have everything.
Everybody now.
And everybody has rent premium?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I haven't seen a
Except
whole
for
lot of
my
rent premiums. How are you guys doing?
We don't really get too many conditionals.
Okay.
Right now, all of our approvals have pretty much been full.
Good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Seriously.
Yesterday, that was a requirement.
And are you finding it difficult to having to go in and actually, because it doesn't automatically come up.
Mhm.
I make it a habit, so as soon as I see the conditions, I just have to
Just
hurry
go
up
and
and
add
put
it.
the premium. Because what happened was before, I forgot it when that's when you flagged
Mhm.
me saying, hey, you forgot the rent premium. I
And
said,
I'm always
"Okay."
there. I'm always there. I'm randomly checking. And Nicole, I ask that you do the same thing because we do find it across the board. Doesn't matter how wonderful you are and how long you've been doing it, you're always going to forget it. At least one. And every once in a while, I'll float in. I know Carolyn will. We'll
Yeah.
kind of pick them out and then we'll
Johnny,
just
I
reach
don't
out
think
to
I've
you.
seen any rent premiums for you. How are you, you're not adding it into scheduled billing?
I haven't. I haven't. Everybody's pretty much been going approved.
So they haven't been coming back conditional, so you haven't had the opportunity to go in?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that. And especially for those that don't get them that often, it is easy to forget. So just, make a note, even if you have to put a sticky note on your computer until you have them. Because since it's a new initiative for us and we don't get many conditionals, you just want to make sure that you're remembering.
And the rent premium, thank you, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
you
just
didn't
gotta
interrupt.
interject on points as they come up. The rent premium in scheduled billing is the only merge field that's going to combine with the monthly rent
Mhm.
and show on the lease.
Mhm.
So if you have a lease and, their rent is $1,000 and their rent premium is $70, it'll say monthly rent $1,070. If you forget to put that rent premium in scheduled billing, it's only gonna assign $1,000. And once they sign it and you give them keys and move in, are you gonna try to go back and add it?
Because where are you going to get it?
You're not gonna get it. So it's really important that you just,
The end of the month report too, for all of us, there should be a report, that we run that says who we were approved with conditions or accepted, so you can go through and audit everything that you had that month
Right.
too and check to see if your improvement conditions actually reflect that too.
absolutely.
Okay, so here, anything that's automatically included, valet trash, flat rate utility fee, property admin fee will all show up here. Nobody can edit it. You can't add it. You can't remove it. It's automatically in there. And then this is where they say that if they have a pet or not. So let's just
Lie.
go ahead. Yeah, they always lie because this is what they do. They go, oh yeah, I have a pet. Holy moly, that's loud.
I don't
have a pet.
No longer have a
No.
pet. So, it's good and bad. But, eventually we find out. So they're not that smart because we'll find out eventually.
I have a dog. I'd rather them have a dog.
You want them to have a dog
Yeah, can I have
this
a
time?
dog?
Okay, let's have a dog.
If
Oh,
we have
Carolyn
someone
wants a cat.
who is moving in and they have a new puppy, and new puppy hasn't been to the vet yet,
Right.
because new puppy has a vet appointment, but it's 2 weeks after
You
the
have
move.
tons of new puppies.
I have
You
so
do.
many.
I love the pictures that come in.
But like, I know that a couple of our lease compliances turn out to be vet records, and
Right.
it's not that we're forgetting to get them, it's that we can't get them yet.
Yeah.
So, do you want us to put a sticky note on there
Yeah.
that says?
Absolutely, and then it is going to be up to you. If
And we follow up with them, and we
8
usually
weeks
always
later,
send it.
let's get
Yeah.
our first.
Yeah.
They don't have like initial records?
They do,
but not the rabies shot
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
you
of
know.
course.
because they're too young. for
Yeah,
that,
and that's what you guys look at with the vet records is the rabies shot.
Right.
So
Spay
setting
or
up
neuter.
anything before that is, well, that's, we
Yeah,
don't need that
that's, you gotta
anymore.
wait.
Right.
We don't need that spay and neuter anymore, the policy changed.
Oh,
Yeah, no, not sure why, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're not requiring residents, we're allowing them to breed their animals in our property.
so I have to stop
Say you really.
saying that we have to have that? Just-
Yeah.
Yep, and it should be, the wording has been removed from, your pet addendum and it's been removed from, online.
They're not
So-
required to have the animals spayed or neutered.
So it's a conversation I think you can have and just say it's highly recommended and you'll be charged for any damages if, you know.
Yeah.
Especially after the bunny lady.
create-
Hello?
Okay. So we add in our pets, and what's happening right now is it's updating their quote. So the quote that they originally just had the rent, the flat rate utility, and the property admin fee. Now it's added the dog on it, so it has the total amount, has the lease dates, has what our set deposit is currently, the unit, the floor plan, everything. It's all there for them. Their information, what different fees are, what the amenities are in the community. All of this is changeable. If there's things that you feel like we should be adding, we add it. If there's things that you feel like should be taken away, we take it away. So it is something that we can keep an eye on. And that same information should be in your quote that you have in one site. So if you ever want to see what's on there, just look at a quote in one site. It should be broken down for you. So then we're starting the application. It gives all this information that you're going to need to do your pre-screening. So if you go through and there's something that's required but you haven't filled in, it's going to stay yellow.
Yellow.
So I'm going to go ahead and check that there's no middle name. And then from here, it's going to ask you to create the username and password. Now this is it's two. It's their application portal username and password. It's also their resident portal username and password. So it goes into that. So once they're finished applying, they can actually sign right into their resident portal. But for now, where the confusion lies is until they're finished their application and they've actually signed all documents, including their application and their lease, they still should be working out of the prospect portal, which is what we're in. Go ahead and save this. From here, it asks if there's any additional residents. So if they're adding a roommate, they click add resident. If they're adding just a minor, they just add the minor to the total residents. So say there's going to be myself and a minor, I'm just going to say 2. So this brings up a area of opportunity for everyone. Roommates. So we know that there's 2 ways of doing roommates. One is if they are, say they're spouses and one spouse has, if I'm going to fill out an application on behalf of myself and my husband, I have all of his information, I have his social security number, his birth date, his income, all that information, and I'm going to pay for both of us. I'm going to pay both of our applications and the entire holding fee. It makes sense. So then I would check the box saying that I have authorization to enter their personal information. But say I'm moving in with a friend or, my sister, and I don't have all of her information. I leave it unchecked. I put in her information. It sends her an email to start her application. She won't start her application until after I finish my initial portion and pay. That's when it'll send her an invitation to do hers. I know that everybody's had this opportunity where they put in that they're having a roommate. They get to the payment. They pay their portion. I know, you know. And then they decide that they're not going to have that roommate. I would make it very clear to your applicants that make that decision before they get through and make their payment, because once they make their payment, it locks it. The next step, the only way to fix it is paper application. So the moment that they take away that other roommate, it locks up the system because it's not gonna, they have to get screened. So, we have to screen them. Only way we can screen them is if we get all their personal information. So we have to go back and get a paper application at that point. So I would say if they have a roommate, keep your roommate. If you if you plan on paying for both of them, know that at the beginning. So just be very clear with them before you start your application. Know if you're going to have a roommate, and know if you're going to be paying on behalf of your roommate or not.
And if you know you're going to have a guarantor. A guarantor has to be able to credit-wise and income qualify for the entire lease. So you cannot screen a guarantor with the residents. Guarantor / cosigner has to be screened separately and approved, straight approved in order to be a guarantor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of guarantors and residents screened together, so it combines all their income, it combines all their credit, and that's not what a guarantor is for. They have to be able to secure the entire lease. Okay?
And they can only fill out paper
And they can only do
applications.
that via paper app.
Yeah, they'll never be allowed to apply online, or at least as of this point, they won't.
Don't
be
say
allowed to apply
never.
online. Yeah, I,
Never
the
say
conversation has come up, but it has not been,
Someday.
it has not proceeded yet. So eventually we could, but for now, it's paper. So B is going to be on there by herself with the minor, so that's why I have 2. I'm not gonna add any other residents on there. I'm gonna go ahead and save and continue. Okay, so now we're getting into the meat and bones of this application. So again, no middle name. Let's, for the sake of this application, say that B is her legal name. That is her full name. And these are also the important reasons of why they should be filling out the application in your office with you. Is
Yeah.
because on the iPad, because you can give them this information as you're standing there with them. Or sitting there with them. You could be doing other stuff where they are sitting there with the iPad and filling it out, but this way you can give them these instructions, because these are all important things to get through smoothly with your applications. So
Casey and Tyler, I know you guys have a lot of like students applying from
Mm-hmm.
other places, so they're literally not sitting in your office.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah,
the case?
yeah,
That's
we
right.
get a lot of
Yeah.
like,
So
out
you're
of state
doing like a
work.
whole lot of like
Mhm.
telephone back and forth, like you need to go fix this. And
Mhm.
go in
We, and a lot of the times too, and it's a simple process, not
Mhm.
knocking the process, but for some reason, our applicants have a very hard time with the online applications.
Right.
It's understandable.
So, I
being
mean-
able to guide them through without
Yeah.
seeing it one time and then being able to
Mhm.
guide them through
Yeah,
will make it much easier.
No, I
because,
agree.
You know, to guide them through with kind of like what we think is going on
Mhm.
is much different than actually remembering what
yeah.
went on.
Until a couple months ago, we didn't know that you could apply for somebody else
Mhm.
either,
Right.
so that was a whole nother.
Yeah.
That
Now
actually
you
makes
can
it
tell them-
easier.
Yeah.
If you can have like, especially because I've seen like you guys have a lot of like 2 and 3 and 4
Yeah, yeah.
roommates. If you have one person in there and entering all the information,
It's easier.
so much easier instead of seeing like the 4 breakdown 36, 33,
Mhm.
36, 33.
And then we gotta tell each person who has to go first and when they, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have to tell them that, especially when it comes to roommate situations, time is of the essence.
Yeah.
So if you quote them in the office, that quote expires within 3 days. Once the first person goes on and starts applying, the others have 3 days to finish their
Mhm.
application. But they have to keep in mind the initial 3 days of the quote, not the 3 days of the initial applicant. So, so say I got quoted 3 days ago or 2 days ago, I started the application. They can't wait 3 days to finish their application. They now have 1 day to finish their application before the quote expires. But it locks up the apartment for 3 days. So that's why it's important to not only pay attention to the quote expiration date, but also of the date that the person started the application. So
And the
those are
move-in date.
Yeah,
Because
well,
it'll default to today's
Yeah,
date all
that's
the
another
time.
thing too. That's something that we can. Tyler and I notice that a lot. If we get somebody that rents sight unseen,
Mhm.
and like we had a phone conversation, and then they say they're going to go online and fill out the application, it generates today's move-in date. And on YieldStar, the problem with that is they've applied, and now I have to move them to a month away. Or like 2 weeks away or whatever, and then the quote. Now I have a lease compliance.
Did they plug in a date when they went in to select their apartment?
It defaults to the.
It defaults.
It
to
does,
yeah.
but-
Did they
but
plug? Do you
They have to
you?
plug in a move-in date.
Well,
that
we
they're
share
looking
that
for.
with them. Like,
Yeah.
you know, make
or
sure you pick an actual move-in, like,
Okay.
when we prompt them, that's the
You can't
first
select it
thing
right
we
now.
say.
Mhm.
so they don't miss that.
Yeah,
I'm
because
curious.
like yours,
Tomorrow
for
day.
example, is 10/19, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, it
tomorrow.
automatically went to tomorrow, but
Yeah.
that's because I didn't put in a move-in date when I was selecting the
Mhm.
apartment. So
At
when
what
we're
time?
finished,
Oh.
we'll double check it, we'll go back and see how it was at the beginning.
Yeah,
Actually, I could probably sign out of this really quickly.
because that's like the only.
It'll take me right back to this. The apartment might be gone, but, oh wait, no, so, because I didn't finish it. So I have a
Okay,
move-in date
yeah.
here of 10/19.
So I think that, and
So
that's.
I would have to select,
Yeah, and that's nothing I don't think we can fix other than we just need to be attentive because like if you're not aware that you need to select the move-in date first, you're gonna skip right past it because it's on the very, very first screen.
Right.
Well, that's the fix, though. You can just log out. It'll save all your information, then log back in if you already missed the opportunity to set the move-in date correctly on the first page.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I don't want to change what I've already done, but yes, you can go, and also, hopefully you are working with these people initially, which means that you should quote them ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Yeah,
to
that's why I
save
brought
them
up,
the chance.
especially for Casey and Tyler,
Yeah.
like,
We do get a couple applicants where they'll call us, they'll ask for prices, or they speak to level one.
right,
Level one quotes them, and level one doesn't give them a quote ID, and then they'll go in on their own.
And it's different.
Yep, yeah. If I didn't have Yield Star, it wouldn't be a big gripe, but
Right.
Yield Star is where it makes it a little tricky.
And they're finding cheaper prices online
That's
than
another
what
thing,
we're
too.
quoting them.
Yeah.
So we'll quote them sometimes on the Yield Star and then go online and it's like,
It's
oh, but the 12-month lease is less. Or
They apply for the wrong apartment, then they're mad. But it was cheaper. Because the kitchen's cheaper, guys.
but I want the upgrade for the cheaper price.
Yeah, not gonna happen, guys.
Okay, so hopping back in, I'm gonna enter in the information. Identification, you have the option for SSN, ITIN, or no social security number. So you wanna make sure that they select the correct one, because we will find out eventually. We've had people who have come in, I think at Regency before you got there, when they didn't put in, they put in no social security number. His name was like Michael Smith. I'm like, yeah, you have a social security number.
All right, here's a couple things with this. Now that we're looking at this, from this viewpoint, from this vantage point, anything besides an SSN or ITIN, you are not going to get a complete background check, and you are not going to get a credit check. The only time that's okay is if when they come to do their income verification, their ID, even if they are, let's say they're from another country, they either have to have a visa, which is on the other side of the passport, if it's, or